Young to court. He denies charges of laundering nearly £60 million. And that's the BBC News at 3 minutes past 12. Our next at 1.
MBytes with music and news on BBC Radio 2. Oh, yeah.
Looking at the G8 protesters first, one of them joining. What are your questions for him? #500 288 291 and ask him, comment to him in any way you please. Also on this show, the elderly lady neglected at home, whose responsibility is she? And happy birthday to you is under copyright, if you can believe that. Plus the yellow fever jab. And the man who says it drove him to insanity. Protesters have always faced their fair share of derision. In the 60s, those goddamn hippies campaigning against the war in Vietnam were told to cut their hair and have a wash. In the 80s, the women camping at Greenham Common were pooh-poohed as a mob of menopausal commie sympathisers. Go back a couple of centuries, and the Tolpuddle martyrs were dismissed as just a bunch of filthy peasants. Those planning to protest at the G8 summit in Northern Ireland next week are facing similar slights upon their name, especially after events earlier this week in Soho. Did you see all of this? Police stormed a squat where demonstrators had gathered, and they made 57 arrests for things like possession of a defensive weapon and criminal damage. The tabloids labelled the protesters as layabouts, troublemakers, thugs, good-for-nothings, Call us 0500 288 291. Tell us what you think. Is that really what you believe, that they are a waste of space, these people? We've invited an anti-G8 protester who was in Soho when all hell broke loose to try to convince you otherwise, that they do have a real political point to make and they aren't just out demonstrating because they think it's cool and anti-establishment and because Daddy's got enough money to fund their lifestyle of perpetual protest. If you want to take him on, call us now 0500 288 291. So we're joined by teacher Jamie Kelsey-Fry at the anti-G8 demonstration in Glen Eagles in 2005 and also in Soho this week.
That's right, absolutely. So
there.
I was actually visited that convergence space on Big Street the night before, so I've got a very good picture of the kind of people who were in there when the police went in around about 10 o'clock the next morning.
So when you say convergence space, you mean what they have called a squat?
Yeah, so what happens in actions like this is you have a lot of people, activists from around the world, so generally they need a large space where they can all stay, where they can have workshops and skill shares and network, because obviously they can't afford hotels. So that was why the police had targeted that. They wanted to shut it down and keep everyone in, even before the demonstration started.
So you went into the squat and who was in there?
Average age 24. I was talking to Italians, Spanish, Greeks, Irish, Germans, French, so there's young people, mainly young people who are there from all around the world, but please pay attention to the fact that a lot of those countries, they're suffering severe austerity underneath an economic system which obviously this movement thinks is completely broken. So that's where they get their passion from and their vision from. I didn't see anyone drinking cider or avoiding a shower. I didn't see people who were just like laughing and saying we're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow. It's frightening. Your listeners probably saw how the police behaved that next day. It's a very frightening thing to take on. I think they're actually very brave people, these people.
There was some talk that they released a map of the city and certain places they wanted to protest at, including a map that included bank locations and hedge funds and also places like restaurants which are described as dens of the rich.
Dens of the rich, okay, so with these kind of actions, this kind of anti-G8 movement has been going on for a very long time, and you always have this tactic, which is a map, and what they're drawing attention to, there are 200 sites on that map. So obviously the idea was that we're going to have a demonstration outside every one of those 200, but what it's drawing attention to is how many organisations, corporations and businesses there are that are legitimate targets to raise awareness about because they are practising in a way which we think is completely economically unjust.
Okay, so are Jamie and his friends troublemakers or people making a serious point? Wayne Rasmussen in London, you're through to one of our G8 protesters. Fire away.
Jamie.
Wayne.